Wherever motorcycle clubs exist, violence is bound to happen. And in all the years that we have graced these all-powerful clubs, there has never been more disastrous biker wars than these. Picture tens of people dead, millions of dollars of property destroyed, and the endless trauma caused to civilians caught up between the guns of these clubs. Believe us when we tell you that what you're about to watch is a blood-soaked tale of the most deadly biker wars ever witnessed. Brace yourselves.
Within the sleepy and peaceful nation of Canada, a war rages on. Two groups, the Hells Angels and the Outlaws, battle for supremacy, causing a stir in the criminal underworld in Canada. Yves Apache Trudeau, a top hitman for the Hells Angels, leads the charge against the Outlaws in this violent conflict. The Outlaws are no match for the mighty Hells Angels, who overpower them at every turn. Defeated and depleted, the Outlaws retreat to Ontario, where they have a slight advantage. Meanwhile, the Laval chapter, a branch of the Hells Angels, led by Yves Trudeau, plays a pivotal role in driving the Outlaws out of Quebec. But the Laval chapter has its own problems, with many members struggling with drug addiction and violating club rules. As a result of their aggressive tactics, they also find themselves targeted by the police, who harass them and bring unwanted attention to the chapter. The bosses of the Hells Angels begin to fear for their reputation, and the police attention pressures the Hells Angels, who ultimately decide the Laval chapter has outlived its usefulness. They decide to destroy the Laval chapter, one of their own. Under the guise of a meeting to discuss problems in a Hells Angels clubhouse in Lennoxville, the Canadian Hells Angels bosses order the Laval chapter to attend. Yves Trudeau, however, has checked himself into a detox clinic a week prior and is unable to attend. The members of the Laval chapter who show up expect to be congratulated. Instead, they fall into a deadly trap. While a few survive the ambush, the majority are mercilessly wiped out. This brutal incident is still remembered as the Lennoxville Purge. In the aftermath, Yves Trudeau, the #1 hitman of the Hells Angels and part of the Laval chapter, feels betrayed and chooses to cooperate with the police. His cooperation leads to the arrest of 39 Hells Angels members, a staggering blow to the notorious criminal organization. But there is one man who, despite the Lennoxville Purge, or rather because of it, wants to join the Hells Angels. As it turns out, he will not only join them, but lead them into their next war. Maurice Bushe is born in 1953 into a family far from perfect. His alcoholic father is a violent man who terrorizes his family, while his mother struggles to keep them together. Maurice has 7 siblings, and his childhood is anything but idyllic. His mother is his rock, while his father is the cause of endless pain and suffering. Maurice's life takes a sharp turn when he drops out of school in the 9th grade. By then, he is already addicted to drugs, and he finds himself on a dark path that will lead him to a life of crime. He tries to work on a construction site, but he is fired after just 1 week due to his addiction. From there, his criminal career takes off. At the age of 19, he commits his first robbery, stealing $300 from a store. This is just the beginning, and he goes on to break into 3 more properties. However, the law catches up with him soon enough, and he is sent to prison for 6 months. It is just the first of many times that he will be in and out of prison. But there are moments of hope in his life too. After his release from prison, he manages to find a job in a factory, and for 4 years he tries to live a straight life. But his past catches up with him, and he finds himself drawn into the world of motorcycle gangs. He meets Salvatore Cassetta, a man who becomes his close friend and is also a leader in a biker club. At the same time, the war between the Outlaws and the Hells Angels is heating up. The Hells Angels are trying to establish a foothold in Canada, and Bushe and Cassetta are on their radar. But fate has other plans for Bushe. He is arrested again, this time for a sex offense with a minor, and he is sentenced to 40 months in prison. While he is behind bars, the Lennoxville Purge takes place. The brutal massacre will forever change the biker scene in Canada. Salvatore Cassetta is appalled by the Hells Angels' actions and decides to go his own way, rather than joining them. With this, the Rock Machine Nomads are born, led by Salvatore Cassetta and his brother. Bushe, however, has a completely different view of these events. He agrees with the way the Hells Angels act. He has long admired the Hells Angels for their brutal tactics and brotherhood. When they offer him a place among their ranks, he jumps at the chance. Bushe becomes a fully fledged member of the Hells Angels in 1986 and quickly rises through the ranks. Yves Trudeau cooperates with the police after the Lennoxville incident, and two of the Hells Angels' most powerful bosses are now on the run. One is arrested while the other is able to flee to Morocco. The two bosses are therefore no longer in power, leaving a huge power vacuum. Maurice Bushe can simply win people over with his charisma, and so he gets to a leadership position pretty quickly. When he learns that a rival gangster is at a bar, he brazenly walks in and shoots him. The incident proves fatal, but despite being unmasked, the police are unable to find any witnesses willing to testify against him. As the Hells Angels reorganize after several high-profile arrests, a man named Walter Stadnik rises to become national president of the organization. Stadnik recognizes Bushe's ruthless leadership potential and quickly puts him in charge of the Montreal chapter. It's during this time that Bushe earns the nickname Mom, as he micromanages his followers, making sure every detail of their assignments has been thought through. Bushe's ambition doesn't stop there. He still sees the Outlaws as a threat to his control of Quebec and becomes determined to wipe them out once and for all. With his cunning and ruthless tactics, Bushe sets his sights on achieving ultimate power. His first move is a brutal one, a bomb that obliterates the outlaw clubhouse and sends a clear message: the Hells Angels mean business. But the aftermath of the bombing takes an unexpected turn when the president of the Danville Outlaws contacts Bushe, offering to join forces with the Hells Angels. It's a tempting offer, but Bushe sees an opportunity for even greater power. He declines the offer, instead convincing the Outlaws rocker to remain in his position and provide the Hells Angels with critical information about his former comrades. Thanks to this newfound inside information, the Hells Angels are able to launch attack after devastating attack against the Outlaws, gradually whittling down their numbers. At their lowest point, the Outlaws are reduced to a mere 10 members, and they finally make the decision to completely retreat, leaving Quebec to the Hells Angels. But are the Hells Angels now really untouchable? With two strong leadership figures like Stadnik and Bushe, who dares to mess with them? With their rivals vanquished, the Hells Angels stand triumphant as the undisputed kings of the Quebec biker scene. Bushe's bold tactics have paid off, but he knows that maintaining his power will require even greater ruthlessness in the years to come. The Mafia also appoints the Hells Angels as one of their most important business partners. In the dark and shadowy world of organized crime, power is everything. And in Canada, the Rizzuto family is the most powerful criminal organization, holding sway over almost all the street gangs in the country. With their international connections spanning across New York, Sicily, and Colombia, the Rizzutos control the drug trade, deciding who is allowed to distribute narcotics in Canada. And one of their biggest buyers? The Hells Angels. The Rizzuto family has a vast network which extends from the construction industry to politics and even law enforcement agencies. Judges and police officers are on their payroll, ensuring their influence reaches every corner of Quebec. At the center of this criminal empire is now Maurice "Mom" Bushe. Rising to become one of the most powerful men in Quebec, Bushe and the Hells Angels are making millions every month through their partnership with the Mafia. But despite their success, there is one rival gang that constantly threatens Bushe's hold on power: the Rock Machine Nomads. With their own sizable network, the Rock Machine are equally active in the drug trade, spreading their influence to restaurants, nightclubs, and other businesses. But Bushe simply cannot do anything against them, because the leader of the Rock Machine is his old friend Salvatore Cassetta, who also has powerful friends. A high-ranking Mafia member is on Cassetta's side. He seemed untouchable until in 1994, when Cassetta is arrested by the police with a massive stash of drugs, providing a unique opportunity for Bushe to strike. He sends his men to the various shops of the Rock Machine, offering them a choice: either sell only the dope he gives them, or face the consequences. This ultimatum is not just aimed at the Rock Machine, but at all criminal organizations in the city. Either buy from the Hells Angels or pay the price. The Rock Machine MC refused to submit to the Hells Angels' dominance and begin to search for allies. They find them in the form of street gangs like the Pelletier clan and secret businessmen involved in the narcotics trade, like the Dark Circle. Together, they hatch a plan to take down the Hells Angels. The street gangs and rockers are willing to fight on the front lines, while the Dark Circle provides financial support for the cause. It is a risky and dangerous endeavor, but they are willing to risk it all for the chance to topple the Hells Angels' stranglehold on the criminal underworld of Montreal. This is a turning point in the city's criminal history, and one that will have far-reaching consequences for years to come. The Rocker War in Quebec officially starts on July 13, 1993, as the Rock Machine Nomads launch their first attack. 3 of their members arrive at a business owned by a Hells Angels and take him out. The next day, they shoot another Hells Angels member, who survives the incident but is rushed to the hospital. The police soon catch wind that the Rockers are planning to blow up a Hells Angels clubhouse and arrest 5 Nomad members. In response, the Hells Angels bosses hold a meeting and decide to declare war. And so, the madness begins. Bombs are used, and shootings take place in broad daylight. Each action is immediately followed by a revenge attack. On October 28th, the Hells Angels are able to take out the leader of the Pelletier clan, adding fuel to the already raging fire. His brother then assumes control and seeks personal revenge against the Hells Angels leader, Bushe. The plan involves parking a truck loaded with explosives in front of Bushe's favorite restaurant, with the intent of causing devastating damage. However, a police officer inadvertently foils the plan by noticing that the truck is not authorized to be on the road. As the conflict rages on, both sides suffer numerous casualties, and the situation becomes increasingly challenging for the police. With most of the Rockers refusing to cooperate with the authorities, solving many of the cases proves to be an uphill battle. Moreover, corruption within the police force only adds to their difficulties. But in 1995, a crucial breakthrough occurs. The police find someone who will become a key player in the investigation, Danny Kane, a Hells Angels hangaround. Kane had been trying to become a full-patched member of the Hells Angels for some time, but he had only been given the dirty work. His eventual breakthrough came when he was tasked with leading the Demon Keepers, a newly formed rocker club of the Hells Angels, but they were quickly busted by the police. Kane felt used and betrayed by the Hells Angels and decided to cooperate with investigators. He provided valuable information about the Hells Angels' operations, as well as information about the Mafia in Montreal. Kane also revealed that the Montreal and Quebec police were largely on Maurice Bushe's payroll. After his statements, Kane then returns to the streets and begins his work as an informer. But things escalate to a higher level. A drug dealer with ties to the Hells Angels is killed when his car is blown up. Tragically, an 11-year-old boy playing in a nearby park is also hit and dies 4 days later. The public is outraged, demanding action be taken against the biker gangs. However, the corrupt police force poses a major obstacle to justice. Even if a Hells Angels member is arrested, judges and juries are often bribed, rendering convictions impossible. Despite this, Operation Wolverine is launched with the aim of ending the biker war once and for all. Investigator Andre Bouchard leads the charge, determined to bring justice to the victims and their families. With prior experience investigating biker gangs, having worked on the Pagans MC case, and intimate knowledge of Maurice Bushe from previous investigations, Bouchard is a valuable asset to the team. However, he is not alone in his quest for justice, as other investigators join him, refusing to be intimidated by the bikers. Together, they work tirelessly to bring an end to the violence and hold those responsible accountable for their actions. As Bouchard continues his investigation into the Hells Angels, he becomes a thorn in the side of Maurice Bushe, the notorious leader of the gang. Bushe decides to take matters into his own hands and provoke Bouchard by holding meetings in his favorite cafe, which is then filled with Hells Angels. But Bouchard doesn't back down and continues to show up with a table full of police officers, leading to intense stare-downs between the two groups. However, Bushe soon learns from one of his bribed officers that there is a rat in his ranks. He forms a small elite group called the Nomads to find out who the traitor is. Meanwhile, Bouchard becomes convinced that some of his colleagues are on the take and decides to leave Operation Wolverine. In the meantime, the informant Kane is given a dangerous mission to take out a member of Hell's Angels. This target had landed on the hit list after getting into a bar fight with a mafia member. But as Kane sets out to complete the task, the search for the rat within the Hell's Angels organization intensifies. Suspicion turns to a man named Steinert, who had recently won a court case, surprisingly. But as the pressure mounts, Steinert starts to suspect Kane, who is the actual informant. In order to pull his head out of the noose, Kane devises a cunning plan. He uses his position in the police to manipulate them into seizing a shipment, and then intentionally frames Steinert for the crime. This maneuver creates an atmosphere of distrust and suspicion within the group, as Steinert was suspected of being the rat. To make matters worse, Kane accuses Steinert and the other rocker involved in the altercation with the mafia, causing them to become targets. Eventually, both the rocker and Steinert are found dead, and it seems that Kane has successfully covered his tracks. But Bushe remains convinced that there are more informants among them, and he decides to take drastic action, drawing up a hit list of names of authorities. The first two targets are prison guards who get assassinated by members of the Hell's Angels Nomads immediately. The city of Quebec is once again thrown into chaos and fear at the brazen violence. Bouchard opens his own operation called Harm after those incidents to find the killers of the officers. They conduct countless raids and make countless arrests. They get one to talk who reveals one of the assassins. His name is Stefan Gagne. Gagne confesses everything and also gives the name of his accomplices. One of them flees to Mexico, while the other is found dead. The most important thing is that Gagne agrees to identify Bushe as the client. On the 18th of December 1997, Maurice Bushe therefore gets arrested. A year later, the trial opens, but things turn out differently than expected. The judge acts in Boucher's interest, even though he is known for being one of the toughest. He believes Bushe and his team of lawyers, and Maurice Bushe is acquitted. With that, Maurice Bushe becomes a free man again, and seems untouchable. He is also almost winning the war against the Rock Machine Nomads. A member of the Dark Circle decides to switch sides and betrays many of its members who were financial backers, which results in Dark Circle members being eliminated in favor of Bushe. Some members opt to surrender to the police and serve time in prison. Bushe likely seeks to weaken the opposing mafia and gain sole power. Then, a Hell's Angels member turned informant reveals that Bushe is behind a murder of a man doing business with the mafia. As a result, 11 people close to the mafia and Hell's Angels are taken out. A journalist covering the case is also shot after accusing Bushe of being the client. Fortunately, he survives the attack. The incident sparks riots calling for stricter laws. Vito Rizzuto, the mafia godfather, is not thrilled with the whole situation as it brings a lot of attention to his business in the underworld. His frustration boils over. He knows he must take action, and so he threatens the Hell's Angels and the Rock Machine. Vito tells them that he will stop the deliveries if they do not put an end to their war. The tension is high, and the stakes are even higher. Soon after, a meeting is called between Maurice Bushe, the leader of the Hell's Angels, and the Rock Machine Nomad's boss. Vito watches on as the two men shake hands, hoping that this marks the end of the conflict and the profitable underworld business can continue. However, the story takes a turn when Bouchard arrests Bushe again. This time, the case is retried, despite Bushe being acquitted at the time. The authorities classify the case in such a way that the Hell's Angels had intimidated the jury during the first trial. This new trial is an impactful occasion, and everyone is on edge. In the end, Bushe is found guilty, and he is given a life sentence. The room is silent, and everyone knows that the verdict will have consequences for years to come. As time passes, Bushe faces many challenges in prison. He is attacked multiple times, and the Hell's Angels even kick him out of their club. It is a harsh reality for someone who was once so powerful. But justice has been served, and the world is a safer place because of it.
From the riveting story of the deadliest Hell's Angels war ever, we dive into their history, uncovering the turmoil of the most deadly biker wars. This is a clash between rebellious motorcycle groups, with the Hells Angels caught in what history will call the most violent biker war.
In the Canadian underworld, a race for supremacy begins in which the most ruthless will win. Two of the most powerful and notorious motorcycle clubs in the world, the Outlaws and the Hells Angels, wage war over Montreal. A battle rages on for close to 10 years, culminating in the loss of 62 lives and instilling fear and terror in the hearts of Canadians. The Outlaws, known for their brutal tactics and ruthlessness, have their sights set on the Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club, a formidable Canadian club that has been around for over a decade. The Outlaws, an American club, see an opportunity to expand their empire into Canada and decide to absorb the Satan's Choice MC into their club. Meanwhile, the Hells Angels have their eyes on an even bigger prize. The Popeye Moto Club has been on their radar for years. The Hells Angels are determined to take over the club and extend their influence across the country. Finally, in December of 1977, the Hells Angels achieve their goal and officially take over the Popeye Moto Club. It's a big victory for the Angels and a clear sign that they are a force to be reckoned with in the Canadian biker scene. The First Canadian Biker War begins to escalate in February of 1978, when the Outlaws establish their second Quebec chapter by taking over the Montreal Rockers MC. The Hells Angels are not going to let this challenge go unanswered. On a February night in 1978, a Hells Angels member named Yves Apache Trudeau, a man who will go down in the Hells Angels Hall of Fame, makes his move. He approaches a group of Outlaws members and, without warning, pulls out a gun and opens fire. One member is killed instantly, and another is critically injured. This brutal act of violence marks the beginning of a full-blown war between the two groups in the province. But the Hells Angels do not hesitate to use even more drastic means. Before the Outlaws can fight back, the Hells Angels attack again, this time directly the leader of the gang. The Angels plant a bomb under his car, with little regard for innocent bystanders who may be caught in the crossfire. The Outlaws are hit hard. Their leader is dead, and his closest confidants are injured. The gang is in shock, and at first cannot seem to defend themselves against the ferocity of the opposing Hells Angels, especially when they are attacked on 3 consecutive days in April 1978. On the first day, they storm the Outlaw Clubhouse, injuring several members. The violence continues on the second day, with another Outlaw member being brutally murdered. On the third day, a Hells Angel opens fire on an outlaw and his girlfriend at a local bar, leaving them both critically injured. The city is in a state of shock, and people are starting to fear for their safety. The Outlaws manage to launch a small counterattack, shooting a Hells Angel during a drive-by shooting. However, this is only the beginning. The Hells Angels have earned great respect and caused a stir with their brutal takeover of the Canadian underworld. Smaller motorcycle clubs like the Wild Ones MC decide to join forces with them, and Walter Stadnick, the leader of the Wild Ones at the time, arranges a meeting with Hells Angels leader Eve Buto to discuss a patchover. Unbeknownst to them, the Outlaws are watching the meeting closely. The diplomatic meeting between allies ends in a bloody event known today as the Le Tourbillon Massacre. In a cafe, the Hells Angels and the Wild Ones strategize the potential alliance until chaos erupts. 2 outlaws, equipped with a sawn-off shotgun and a pistol, start blasting bullets at the opposing bikers. The unsuspecting bikers in the cafe are not able to defend themselves. The once peaceful cafe now resembles a bloodbath, with bullet-riddled walls and blood-stained floors. 2 members of the Wild Ones MC and 1 Hells Angel are dead, several others injured. Amid the carnage, Walter Stadnick manages to evade the gunmen by hiding under a table. The Outlaws have now scored their first real counterattack. The Tourbillon Massacre is a painful stab at the supremacy of the Hells Angels. The Hells Angel bosses then set their #1 assassin, Yves Apache Trudeau, to track down and kill the person who ordered this massacre. But the Outlaws continue their counterattacks in the meantime. They simply cannot allow a union of Wild Ones and Hells Angels. They, therefore, focus on the smaller Wild Ones MC and make it their main goal to eliminate this small but vital biker club. The Wild Ones are not able to defend themselves against the superior outlaws who kill one biker after the other, no matter if with firearms or bombs. When Walter Stadnick then one day returns to the hometown of the Wild Ones, he no longer finds a club. The Wild Ones are history, and Stadnick stands alone. He therefore joins the Hell's Angel on his own and comes to play a leading role in the future. Currently, one Hell's Angel is particularly outstanding in ensuring that the Hell's Angels remain in control. Yves Apache Trudeau shoots the former boss of the Outlaws and then also gets the man behind the Tourbillon massacre, Roland Dutemple. Trudeau places a bomb under Dutemple's car and blows it up when he gets in. He then kills another outlaw in cold blood on the street. Trudeau by himself is a force to be reckoned with. His influence on the battle between Hell's Angels and Outlaws is crucial. Together with Yves Le Boss Buto and another Hell's Angel, he even kills an outlaw and his girlfriend by blowing up his motorcycle. This particularly unruly group around Trudeau is granted authorization by the Montreal chapter to establish the Montreal North chapter based in Laval. It's predominantly composed of former Popeyes known for their violent and drug-fueled conduct, a pivotal decision. In contrast, the Montreal South chapter, led by Réjean Zig Zig Lessard, consists of more disciplined members who joined after 1977. The North chapter's notoriety for their reckless behavior and violent tendencies ultimately culminated in a massive inner conflict. Yves Trudeau was even forced to kill a member of his own chapter as he was heavily drug addicted and had conspired to kidnap the kids of one of the Hell's Angels cocaine dealers. The fight against the Outlaws finally costs the life of Eve Buto, the current president of the Canadian Hells Angels. After a visit to a cafe, he smokes a cigarette with a fellow member. Then he is hit by the bullets of a .38 caliber pistol. The gunman is Gino Goudreau, an outlaw prospect who wants to finally earn full member status by murdering a Hells Angel. Over 2,000 supporters and 150 Hells Angels from Canada, the United States, England, and other locations join the funeral ride of Eve Buto, which covers a distance of approximately 40 miles from Sorel to Drummondville, where Buto is laid to rest. The day after the funeral, a young boy makes a shocking discovery. A bomb has been planted on the route taken by the procession, posing a grave threat to the Hells Angels riders. Police surmise that the bomb has been placed and disguised under cover of darkness on the night before the funeral, in what appears to be a targeted attempt on the lives of the bikers. In the world of criminal biker gangs, not even a funeral is sacred. However, the seemingly heaviest blow against the Hells Angels, the murder of the leader, does not lead to the hoped-for effect. In 1984, the Hells Angels go on the rampage again. Car bombs, drive-by shootings, and suddenly untraceable outlaw members. With calculated precision, the Hells Angels deliver devastating blows to the Outlaws, causing them to retreat from Montreal in defeat. The Outlaws are forced to regroup in Ontario, where they can maintain their stronghold, but the Hells Angels have demonstrated their overwhelming power and dominance in the region. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, the Hells Angels continue to operate with impunity, and their influence remains a significant force in the Canadian underworld. The First Canadian Biker War has come to a close, but it has only served to solidify the Hells Angels' reputation as one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the country.
After that grim chapter of the most violent biker war, we plunge into the most deadly biker massacre ever. Picture a scene of unprecedented violence, a moment that forever stains biker history.
Ontario, Canada, is a place known for its peaceful tranquility, where neighbors wave hello and families gather at local events. But beneath the surface of this idyllic community, a dark chapter in Canadian criminal history unfolds, one that sends shockwaves through the nation. In April 2006, a massacre takes place that exposes a world of violence, betrayal, and shattered loyalties. It is a day that will forever etch the name Wayne Kellin into the annals of infamy. As the leader of a renegade faction within the Bandidos, Kellin is no stranger to danger. In fact, he relishes in it and escalates things to a new level that leaves the entire nation bewildered and aghast. With his tough nature and his reckless disregard for the law, Kellin becomes a legend in the world of outlaw bikers, feared by his enemies and revered by his brethren. Born in 1949, not much is known about the upbringing of Wayne, leaving the world curious about the path that leads him to a life of crime. By the tender age of 18, he has already become a seasoned criminal, delving into burglaries, drug dealing, and even whispers of murder. Without any gang protection to shield him from the dangers of the Canadian underworld, Wayne is a vulnerable figure. In July 1977, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club expands into Canada, absorbing the Satan's Choice chapter in London, Ontario. Kellin seeks membership, but is denied as he is seen as a heat score, a guy who continuously draws attention from the police. In 1982, he then is allowed to establish a puppet club of the Outlaws and names it the Holocaust Motorcycle Club, which didn't sit well with many other outlaw members and therefore is later renamed to the Annihilators Motorcycle Club in 1988. The sick name he chooses for his club already indicates what kind of twisted mind this guy has. However, Wayne's success is marred by his unpredictable temper, which frequently poses obstacles in his path. His fiery nature eventually leads to an incident in June 1991 when an outlaw member accuses Wayne of shooting him. The charges are eventually dropped when the accuser chooses not to testify, but the incident places Wayne under the watchful gaze of the police, who now regard him as a person of interest. A year later, in 1992, a moment of reckoning arrives for Wayne. As part of a police crackdown codenamed Project Bandito targeting both the Annihilators and the Outlaws, Kellin is arrested at his farm. He is found drunk and high in his living room, surrounded by guns, cocaine, cash, and Nazi memorabilia. Little does Wayne know that his story is far from over. The farm may have been seized and his freedom stripped away, but the indomitable spirit within him refuses to be extinguished. As Wayne emerges from his prison cell, he finds himself thrust back into a world that has dramatically changed during his incarceration. The Hells Angels, the Outlaws' most formidable adversaries, have risen in power, igniting a fierce war for dominance within the criminal underworld. Determined to reclaim his former position, Wayne wastes no time in resuming his role as a biker boss. However, the Outlaws, tired of Wayne's explosive temper and unpredictable nature, make a fateful decision to ban him and his club. Stripped of his once loyal comrades, Wayne finds himself grappling with a loss of power and influence. In search of a new alliance, he turns to the Loners MC, where he forms a partnership with Giovanni Massadir, who swiftly becomes Wayne's protege and trusted right-hand man. While the Hells Angels attempt to recruit Wayne, he defiantly rejects their offer. Enraged by his rejection, the Hells Angels seek revenge and orchestrate a drive-by shooting targeting Wayne. Though he miraculously survives the attack, his troubles continue to mount. The Hells Angels gain the upper hand in the ongoing war, attracting numerous clubs to their side and solidifying their grip on power. Realizing that he stands little chance against the rising tide of the Hells Angels, Wayne makes a calculated decision to seek a powerful ally. He joins forces with the formidable Banditos, the second most influential biker club in the world, aiming to shift the balance of power once more. However, his ambitions are thwarted when he is arrested in 2000 for illegal possession of firearms, sparking an intense police investigation. The authorities, not only investigating Wayne but also targeting him, uncover a cache of over 40 weapons in his possession. Although he is initially placed in custody, Wayne manages to secure release on bail after 2 years of legal battles. When he re-enters the world outside prison walls in 2002, he is met with a disheartening realization. His former protege, Giovanni Massadia, has ascended to the presidency of the Banditos during Wayne's absence. Fueled by wounded pride and an unwillingness to accept his former protege's newfound authority, Wayne engages in a heated argument with Giovanni. However, the club rallies behind Giovanni, solidifying their support and accepting him as their rightful leader, further marginalizing Wayne in the process. The walls of loyalty that once surrounded him now stand as a barrier between Wayne and his desired position of power. Giovanni leads the Bandidos with a quiet yet firm hand, driven by a personal code that forbids any involvement in the sale of methamphetamine due to his strong moral compass. However, his principled stance attracts its fair share of enemies. The American Bandidos presidents, in particular, disagree with his leadership style, citing the lack of profitability as their main concern. Faced with this opposition, the Bandidos decide to sever ties with Giovanni, stripping him and his crew of their Bandido affiliation. In response, Giovanni renames his club the No Surrender Crew, a defiant declaration of their independence. Despite the name change, tensions remain high as many members of the No Surrender Crew continue to proudly display their Bandido patches. This flagrant disregard for the wishes of the American Bandidos further exacerbates the situation. Determined to resolve the issue, the American Bandidos arrange a meeting at the border between Canada and the United States, inviting Wayne Kellin and Michael Santam, two influential figures, to represent their interests. The meeting is presided over by Peter Mongo Price, the most powerful man in the Bandidos. Price takes the opportunity to express the problem at hand, emphasizing that the continued display of Bandido patches by the No Surrender Crew is not only disrespectful, but also a clear violation of club rules. However, he reassures Wayne and Michael that a violent confrontation is not the desired outcome. All he requests is that the No Surrender Crew cease wearing the patches. In return, Price promises to appoint Wayne as the National Bandidos president, acknowledging his leadership qualities. Despite Price's intentions for a peaceful resolution, Wayne and Michael have a different plan in mind from the outset. Fueled by their desire for vengeance, they aim to eliminate Giovanni and his crew entirely. Wayne is armed to the teeth, and Michael has a loyal group of men ready to wage war against the No Surrender Crew. To devise a strategic plan, Santam and his men convene at Kellin's farm, where they intend to eliminate their adversaries in one fell swoop. In a cunning move, Wayne invites Giovanni Masidi and his crew to his farm under the pretense of addressing the discrepancies between the two groups. Oblivious to the impending danger, Giovanni agrees to the meeting, unknowingly stepping into a carefully laid trap. Time is of the essence, as the fateful encounter looms closer. Sensing the impending danger, Wayne swiftly sends his wife and daughter abroad, ensuring their safety while withholding the true reason behind their sudden departure. The No Surrender Crew arrives at Wayne Kellin's farm, the clock ticking past 10:30 in the evening. Their numbers total 8 men: Giovanni Massadir, Jamie Flans, George Kriarakis, Luis Raposo, George Chasson, Paul Sinapoli, Frank Salemo, and Michael Trotter. Little do they know the treacherous fate that awaits them within those darkened grounds. As the crew steps onto the farm, a palpable tension hangs in the air, casting an eerie shadow over the scene. It is Luis Raposo who first senses that something is terribly amiss. His instincts ring alarm bells, and his gaze falls upon Michael Santam, gripping a menacing firearm. Swiftly realizing the danger, Raposo springs into action, unleashing a hail of bullets towards Santam. His shots find their mark, but to his dismay, Santam remains unscathed, shielded by a bulletproof vest. Recovering swiftly, Santam retaliates, his lethal gunfire finding Raposo, claiming his life in the chaotic crossfire. The sudden eruption of violence on the farm plunges the scene into chaos. Sensing a slim chance of escape, Sinapoli and Kriarakis seize the moment to make a desperate break for freedom. However, their fleeting hopes are dashed as Wayne Kellin intercepts their path, halting their flight. With Kellin and Santam's crew now in control, the remaining members of the No Surrender Crew find themselves held captive, their fate uncertain. Caught in the turmoil of the moment, Kellin and Santam grapple with their own conflicted thoughts, uncertain of the immediate future. Seeking solace in alcohol, Kellin drowns his troubles with each passing sip, even permitting one of the victims to make a call to his girlfriend. As time drags on, Wayne Kellin makes a devastating decision, a choice that will seal the fate of the No Surrender crew. Determined to carry out his grim mission, he resolves to eliminate each member one by one, ensuring the completion of his sinister plan. Driven by his propensity for violence and alcohol, he takes out one after the other. With each life extinguished, Kellin's resolve grows colder until he reaches the last of the No Surrender crew. However, his intoxicated state renders him unable to pull the trigger himself, thus delegating the task to his own loyal henchmen. Having accomplished his dark intentions, Kellin devises a scheme to shift the blame onto the Hell's Angels. He orders his crew to transport the lifeless bodies of the No Surrender crew into Hell's Angels territory, intending to pass off the act as the handiwork of their rival gang. Yet, fate intervenes, and their plans are derailed when their vehicles run out of fuel just as they approach the territorial boundaries. Forced to abandon their cars, they seek refuge on a nearby farm, where they set the vehicles ablaze in a desperate bid to erase any incriminating evidence. Realizing the gravity of their predicament, Kellin hastily makes calls to two trusted confidants, seeking their aid in obliterating any lingering traces of their macabre undertaking. However, unbeknownst to them, the vigilant eyes of law enforcement have already begun to scrutinize the case, launching a thorough investigation into the events that unfolded on that ill-fated night. The proximity of the burnt car to Kellin's farm raises immediate suspicion, casting a damning light on Wayne Kellin's involvement in the heinous crime. Law enforcement wastes no time, launching a meticulous forensic investigation on the premises. Their search yields damning evidence as the investigators discover victims' keys concealed within Kellin's fireplace, a chilling testament to his connection to the murders. In a stroke of fortune for the investigators, they also stumble upon a partially burnt business card belonging to none other than Jamie Flans, further linking the suspects to the crime. The determined efforts of the police do not end there, as they meticulously scour the farm for any additional clues. Their exhaustive search yields results as they unearth the murder weapons, solidifying the case against Kellin and his co-defendants. Following their apprehension, the suspects faced a trial that commenced on the 9th of January 2007. The jury, after careful deliberation, returned a verdict of guilty on all charges for Wayne Kellin and his co-defendant. While Wayne Kellin remains alive to this day, his fate is sealed within the confines of prison, where he will spend the remainder of his days paying for the crimes he orchestrated. The chilling events surrounding the No Surrender crew and their encounter with Kellin's merciless plan serve as a haunting reminder of the depths of human depravity and the unwavering pursuit of justice by those who stand against it.
Taking a somber turn, we explore the aftermath of the most deadly biker massacre ever and the complex dynamics of the bloody battle for Britain. Picture a landscape scarred by conflict, a battleground where the struggle for supremacy reaches a new intensity. Imagine a time when motorcycles ruled the roads and biker culture was at its peak. It's the late 1960s, and a storm is brewing in the heart of Great Britain. The Hells Angels, the infamous motorcycle gang that has taken the United States by storm, has set their sights on new horizons. Their arrival in a country with no significant biker scene sent shockwaves through the nation. Proudly donning their iconic leather cuts, emblazoned with the skull and wings, they left an indelible mark on the British landscape. But little did they know they weren't the only ones seeking a slice of the British motorcycle pie. Another motorcycle gang is present in Britain, the Outlaws. The exact timing of their arrival on the island remains unclear to this day. Some sources claim they are already there before the Hells Angels, while others assert that the Outlaws established their roots in Britain only in the late 1980s. The relationship between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws is a blend of collaboration, rivalry, and conflicts. The conflicts between the two clubs do not originate directly from issues between them. The Hells Angels initially become embroiled in a feud with a club named the Outcasts, which has connections to the Outlaws. Tensions between the Hells Angels and the Outcasts begin in 1997, when the Outcasts plan to ally with another club called the Lost Tribe MC. to form a powerful biker group. However, things take an unexpected turn when the Lost Tribe MC decides to join the Hells Angels instead. In November of the same year, 2 Outcasts members are stopped by the police. They are en route to confront Hells Angels members and are armed. A direct collision could be prevented here by the intervention of the officers. The confrontation continues in January 1998 at a legendary rocker reunion concert held in a large hall. Among the 1,700 attendees are members of the Outcasts. On that day, the Hells Angels appear ready to attack. In a tragic incident, 2 Outcasts members are assaulted and succumb to their injuries. This event reignites hostilities between the 2 clubs, triggering a spiral of further confrontations. The feud between the Hells Angels and the Outcasts evolves into a fierce conflict, marked by recurring clashes. Some sources claim that the Outlaws also become involved in the conflict following the events of 1998, further intensifying tensions between the clubs. The activities and presence of the Hells Angels and the Outlaws in Britain are closely monitored by law enforcement authorities to counter criminal activities and ensure public safety. Laws and measures are implemented to address the crimes committed by biker groups while the battle for dominance on British streets continues. But the watchful eye of the government cannot control all bikers at all times. It is a sunny day in August when the Bulldog Bash, an annual biker gathering, is in full swing. Initiated by the Hells Angels, the event has grown from modest beginnings to become one of the largest biker gatherings in Europe. Year after year, the event expands, and in 2007, for example, a total of 50,000 people flocked to the Bulldog Bash, just so you can imagine how big of a thing that is. However, the event's venue, the Shakespeare County Raceway in Warwickshire, is not without tension as it purportedly lies in Outlaws territory. In 2001, an incident occurs that remains unresolved to this day, causing unease. A Hells Angel is preparing to leave the Bulldog Bash when a black car suddenly appears next to him. Without warning, shots are fired at the biker from the car. Luckily, the biker is only hit in the foot. He survives the attack, but the perpetrators remain unknown. The incident goes unresolved as nobody is willing to cooperate with the police.
This is a typical behavior of biker club members. It is important for them to keep the police and authorities out of their affairs. Those who do not comply will, if they are lucky, only be excluded.
In the following years, from 2001 to 2007, the conflict between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws appears to calm on the surface. However, what transpires behind the scenes remains concealed and will likely remain a secret forever. Towards the end of 2006, though, the Outlaws devise a plan. According to police information, the president of the Warwickshire chapter of the Outlaws is planning an attack. Their target is a Hells Angels biker, and once again, the Bulldog Bash seems to present the perfect opportunity for the attack. The president of the Outlaws even sets up a small shooting range on his property to practice aiming. In total, 7 outlaw bikers are involved in this incident set to take place at the Bulldog Bash 2007. Surveillance cameras capture footage of the Outlaws members scouting the area outside the Bulldog Bash. August 12th arrives, and Jerry Tobin, a Hells Angels biker, is captured on a surveillance camera refueling around 2 p.m. He is accompanied by 2 other Hells Angels bikers. Shortly after the recording, the 3 bikers take to the highway. At the same time, the Outlaws are traveling in a Rover on the highway, searching for a full patched Hells Angels member. When they spot the 3 men, they decide to carry out their plan. Jerry is hit, and his Harley Davidson is riddled with bullets. Jerry later succumbs to his injuries. From the point of view of the Outcasts, the attack was a success. But when police found the burnout Rover linked to the shooting, Sean Crichton was arrested shortly afterwards. He'd used his own vehicle to carry out the execution. While Crichton pleaded guilty, the 6 other men denied any involvement. If it wasn't for Malcolm Bull, who broke the bikers' code of silence by speaking to the police, it's possible that only Crichton, Garside, Turner, and Bull himself would have been sentenced to life in prison. In the end, all 7 were handed life sentences, with minimum time spent behind bars ranging from 25 to 30 years. But one of those convicted has been sentenced to a full life term. Malcolm Bull isn't just at risk from the Hells Angels. but from his former fellow outlaws by breaking a strict code of silence that is at the very heart of one-percenter biker culture. The Outlaws' motto is "God forgives, outlaws don't," and it's unlikely Malcolm Bull will be allowed to forget that anytime soon. Stepping away from Britain's historic streets, we plunge into the dynamic fray of the most deadly biker battle in New York. The saga continues, unfolding a gripping tale of conflict, resilience, and power dynamics as the Hells Angels navigate the urban landscape with relentless determination. In the concrete jungle of New York City, a clash of titans unfolds. Two legendary motorcycle clubs, the Hells Angels and the Pagans, find themselves locked in a battle for dominance, their paths destined to collide with devastating consequences. This battle shakes the community in New York City to the core. Assassinations happen in broad daylight, and drive-by shootings occur. If you're a part of a one-percenter club, there is no time off, and the enemy could be lurking around every corner. But who will emerge victorious in this unforgiving showdown? The deadly rise of the Pagans MC. In the gritty world of American bikers, the Pagans MC holds its own, rubbing shoulders with the infamous Hells Angels and Banditos. True to their name, these guys are up to no good. And you better believe the Hells Angels know exactly who they're messing with. But how the hell did these outlaws carve their path to biker royalty in the first place? The history of motorcycle clubs can be traced back to World War II. It was during this time that many powerful biker clubs emerged as a form of recreation. Little did the founders realize the impact these clubs would have on the present-day scene. Among them, the Hells Angels stand out as arguably the most influential biker club. They too were established in the aftermath of World War II. These clubs are referred to as outlaws, indicating their penchant for occasionally engaging in criminal activities, and their disregard for the rules set by the American Motorcycling Association. Unlike other motorcycle clubs, they operate on their own terms. But today, not only the American Motorcycling Association is skeptical of their intentions. The U.S. Department of Justice defines outlaw motorcycle clubs as organizations whose members utilize their clubs as conduits for criminal activities.
Here I must add that this characterization developed some time after the original creation of the motorcycle clubs. The initial idea was much more free and peaceful, but it seems that somehow a few of these clubs are just looking for the dangerous life.
For veterans, reintegrating into society after the war was not always easy. Motorcycles provided a sense of personal freedom and became a source of camaraderie and excitement. Initially, these clubs were formed for fun, support, and a sense of thrill. The Second World War had a significant impact on the motorcycle industry, prompting the U.S. military to request Harley-Davidson to produce over 100,000 motorcycles. Technological advancements rapidly increased as motorcycles were designed for military use. Thus, the origins of motorcycle clubs may have been humble. Their legacy and influence are still felt today. In the post-World War II era, as the nation heals its wounds, restless souls seek solace and freedom on the open road. Lou Dobkin founds the Pagans Motorcycle Club in Prince George's, Maryland. Little does anyone know that this humble beginning ignites a firestorm of chaos and criminality. The Pagans are a tight-knit group of 13 members, donning denim jackets and roaring down the highways on Triumph motorcycles. United by love for the wind and the thrill, their brotherhood is unbreakable. Symbols of fear adorn the Pagans. Their denim vests bear Surt, the Norse fire giant, symbolizing fiery wrath. The Pagans' unmistakable insignia warns those who dare challenge them. With growing numbers, the hunger for power surges within the Pagans. President John Satan Maron leads them down a dark path, striking deals with La Cosa Nostra. Violence becomes their currency, spreading terror. Despite criminal activities, the Pagans operate with military-like precision. Shrouded in secrecy, they rival the notorious Hells Angels. Law enforcement struggles to infiltrate their ranks, outmaneuvered by a club with its own rules. But anyone crossing the Angels must prepare to enter hell itself. Clash of Titans, Hell's Angels versus Pagans MC. Amidst the escalating feud between the Pagans MC and the Hell's Angels. MC, the streets of New Jersey and Pennsylvania bristle with tension and the faint scent of impending danger. Authorities suspect both clubs' involvement in the drug trade, their hands potentially stained with illicit dealings. The battleground shifts to the bustling boroughs of New York City, where territorial disputes bring the Pagans and the Hell's Angels face to face. It is the year 2018, April 28th, when several members of the Pagans MC cross paths with Shank, a Hell's Angels biker, at a gas station near his club's stronghold. Oblivious to the lurking danger, Shank stops to refuel his motorcycle. A group of Pagans descends upon Shank, their aggression palpable. With swift brutality, they launch a surprise attack, unleashing a torrent of blows that leave Shank battered and broken, a blatant action of the Pagans. With several men, they grabbed Shank, who was driving alone, an action that the Hell's Angels remembered and considered very carefully how they deal with it. But for the Angels, there is no retreat, only the fittest wins. With tensions reaching a boiling point, the Hell's Angels made a bold decision, a symbolic act of defiance. After nearly half a century rooted in their Manhattan East Village clubhouse, they relinquished their stronghold, severing their connection to a legacy steeped in history. Instead, they set their sights on the heart of Pagans' territory, the Bronx. There, on Longstreet Avenue, they acquired a new two-story fortress, marking their unwavering presence amidst their enemies. But as it had to happen, this move was not without consequences. The Pagans certainly don't just let another biker club move peacefully into the neighborhood. A welcome gift should follow soon. The clock strikes January 2nd, 2020, a date destined to be marred by violence. Under the cover of darkness, a hailstorm of bullets rains upon the Hell's Angels Bronx sanctuary. Miraculously, no lives are claimed, but the clubhouse bears the scars of this brazen attack. Surveillance footage unveils a chilling sight, a roaring procession of motorcycles, their riders masked, firing indiscriminately at the clubhouse, leaving destruction in their wake. The Pagans draw first blood, but the Hell's Angels will not remain idle for long. 5 months later, the Bronx streets bear witness to a meticulously planned act of retribution. The president of the Pagans Bronx chapter, Francisco Rosado, becomes their target. In a calculated ambush caught on surveillance cameras, Hell's Angels members emerge from the shadows, masked and armed to the teeth. Their intentions are clear: to eliminate their foe. The lethal dance unfolds with precision, and Francisco Rosado, a man once feared by his enemies, now falls victim to their wrath. His lifeblood stains the pavement as the three assailants flee into the shadows. But fate will not be kind to them for long. Authorities, fueled by the urgency to quell the raging storm, leave no stone unturned in their pursuit of justice. Their efforts bear fruit as they swiftly apprehend the three individuals responsible for Francisco Rosado's demise. The wheels of justice set in motion, promising to exact retribution upon those who seek to paint the streets red. But the war of the Hell Angels and the Pagans does not only take place in New York. In Massachusetts, too, the two clubs shy away from nothing. Massachusetts Mayhem, the bloody rivalry unveiled. As spring unfolds in April 2022, the Pagans make a bold move, establishing a new chapter dangerously close to the Hell's Angels territory in Fall River, Massachusetts. It is a direct challenge, a provocation that will not go unanswered. The Hell's Angels, known for their ruthlessness, are not about to let the encroachment go unnoticed. The Hell's Angels respond with a vengeance. They reestablish their presence in Cape Cod and issue a chilling mandate, a green light policy. It is a declaration of war, allowing the Hell's Angels members to attack any pagan they encounter on sight. The tension in the air is palpable, and the streets crackle with an impending storm. On May 14th, the thunderous rumble of motorcycle engines reverberates through the night. Over 100 Hell's Angels members descend upon a chosen battleground. A smaller group of 25 breaks away, ready to face the Pagans head-on at their clubhouse. Under the cloak of darkness, chaos erupts. Women are hastily ushered inside as 7 Hell's Angels members emerge from the shadows, their weapons gleaming ominously. Knives, hammers, and clubs are brandished with lethal intent, unleashing a storm of violence upon the unsuspecting pagans. Supporting the Hells Angels from the shadows, additional members and their associates cunningly block traffic, acting as lookouts to ensure their rivals have no escape. The streets transform into a battleground. The brawl erupts with a fury as bodies collide, screams pierce the night, and the acrid scent of fear hangs heavy in the air. As chaos consumes the streets, the wails of sirens cut through the night. The police descend upon the scene, their authority pitted against the ferocity of the warring clubs. Their intervention aims to break up the fight and usher the wounded to safety, but it is a daunting task in the face of such unrestrained violence. The Hells Angels, bloodied but unbowed, retreat to their Cape Cod stronghold. It is a temporary respite as the war between the two gangs rages on. In the aftermath of the violent street brawl, whispers of retribution and revenge echo through the shadows. The Hells Angels seethe with anger, their thirst for dominance unquenched. The pagans, battered and bruised, lick their wounds and prepare for the next battle.